Well, thank you for Father for explaining to us the situation as you see it.
Now that I see as it is.
As it is, as it crisis. Now, I have some problems that maybe you could help me with tonight.
I hope so.
And I want to be, it's going to be the doctrinal level, and I want to be real specific. But I see that there's sort of a tale of two sides here. So I have two quotes here that you could answer, and it's on Vatican II. And then we could enumerate this tale of two societies in many different ways, but I think Vatican II is a good place to start, and you mentioned it tonight. And you mentioned the novelties of Vatican II. Well, here's a quote by Bishop Fellay on Vatican II, and then a quote from Archbishop Lefebvre on Vatican II. And this was on the famous Catholic News Service interview.
I use the objection. Bishop Fellay has answered many times that objection. I'll be happy to answer it again.
So he says, many people have an understanding of the council which is a wrong understanding. We have authorities in Rome who say it. We see many things which we would have condemned as being from the council are in fact not from the council, but the common understanding of it, kind of referring to the novelties and the spirit of Vatican II. Now this is Archbishop Lefebvre 6 months before he died. His understanding.
Go ahead, give the...
He says, the more one analyzes the Vatican II documents and their interpretations by church authorities, the more one realizes that it concerns neither a few particular errors such as ecumenism, religious liberty, collegiality, but rather a total perversion of the spirit, a new philosophy founded on subjectivism. This is very serious. A total perversion. This is truly frightening.
Do you think that Bishop Fellay would not sign that declaration today of Archbishop Lefebvre?
Pardon me?
Do you think that Bishop Fellay would not sign what Archbishop Lefebvre said 6 months before his death? You don't know. Well, I can tell you that yes, he would sign it. And if there is no...
Vatican II is intrinsically evil?
Yes.
We know that
yes. Yes. So the explanation that Bishop Fellay has given already quite a few times is that in that interview made to the press agency of the Bishops' Conference in the United States, this sentence was taken out of an hour of discussion, so it is not the full explanation of Bishop Fellay on religious liberty, and I have always said already in some interviews that it's dishonest to use one sentence and make it as a full understanding of the position of Bishop Fellay on it. The explanation that he gave is very simple. I was talking to American press agency, and I was therefore talking to Americans for whom religious liberty is everything. It's part of the Constitution, it's part of their life, and so on. And I was simply telling them in that sentence, which is only part of what I was explaining, but that's the only part that was retained, I was explaining, be careful, the notion of religious liberty you have is not even the religious liberty that Vatican II gives. You have a much larger notion of religious liberty than what Vatican II says. He never said that he agrees with what Vatican II is saying. He says that definition of religious liberty in Vatican II is a restricted one. Now, Bishop Fellay maintained, and has always maintained, that the position of the society, that even that religious liberty, restricted as it is in Vatican II, is a wrong principle, a disaster for the Church, and have led the Church to the state we are where today. But that explanation, I gave it to Father Chazal a few days ago. And His only answer was, well, okay, why did he not retract what he said or explain what he said? Well, first, because I think the position of Bishop Fellay and of the society is well known. What is done here is taking one sentence and trying to show that Bishop Fellay has changed his position, but not trying to understand what he was saying. Each time I have explained that to people who do not want to listen, they come back always to the same quote because they don't want to listen. They just have in one mind, Bishop Fellay has betrayed, so the explanation even that I give now cannot fit with he has betrayed. But that was exactly why Bishop Fellay said that sentence. And when you read it with that in mind, it's clear.
Well, that was on religious liberty you're talking about. I was referring to his view on Vatican II. And I'll take it, I just want to make sure I understand that. The position of the society of, say, Protestant Bishop Fellay is that Vatican II is intrinsically evil. We'll go that far?
In some, yes, in some, the errors of Vatican II are inside, so intrinsic, so inside the council,
but the
and
Vatican
evil.
II documents themselves, that the council
Yes,
itself.
it's exactly the position that we propose, that we gave to Rome.
Okay, well, that does clarify, because I wasn't getting that from.
I'm sorry, but you are not getting that because you are knocking at the wrong doors. I'm sorry. Yes, I mean, I spent this afternoon some time going to some website which I didn't go for a month, and it's amazing. I didn't know that I was hated that much. Yes, and that's enough. Yes.
Father, is this still the position of the society? Rome is lost faith. Rome is in apostasy. These are not words in the air. It is the truth. Rome is in apostasy. They have left the church. Is that still the position of the Society of St. Pius X today, 2012?
Yes, interpreted in the way that our Bishop Fellay did.
How do you do it?
Well, you take all the documents that Bishop Fellay wrote on these, on, for instance, the papacy, the relation between the society and Rome. But the fact is, yes, the society maintained the position that Rome has lost the faith.
Father, I've been here for 10 years. My wife and I.
Good, I've been for 45 years.
We started in Los Gatos. We came here after 3 years. We've been here 8 years. I have never heard a message from a priest in the society here when we traveled with the society to Europe on 2 occasions. Every conference I've ever been, I've never heard language like this from one society priest.
Well, you should have asked sooner.
What?
Sorry, Paul.
Well, first, I don't know where you go, because... Yes, well, you don't go only here. And for an anti-liberal as you are, a man of principles, I don't know why you go to the fraternity for Mass. That I don't understand.
Well, you do know me.
Oh, yes, I do. I know what you write on the internet. I know you're a public man, you know.
Well, to tell you the truth, Father, hearing you tonight, I'm stronger than I ever have before. That's my position.
But, you know, what I said is I maintain. You disagree with us.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you very much.
Father Chazal at the door the other night.
No, Father Chazal was...
set foot on the premises of this establishment again.
I had a talk with Father Chazal, and during this talk, because of his positions, because of his exclusion from the society, I told him, yes, that he is not welcome in any properties of the society in the United States. I will not allow someone who comes here in every of our places to preach the revolution. You don't see it like this, but it's what is going on. So that's exactly what I said. Well, he went on and told one of the parishioners that I have kicked him out. I didn't. I told him that he was not welcome. I didn't. He left the property on his own and didn't call the police. But he said that person that I told him that I would call the police on him if he come back. Never said that. Never said that. The complex of persecution in which you fall. I'm sorry. Because that's exactly what the 9 did. As soon as they break away from the society, from the hierarchy of the society, there is only one solution, is to get harder and to attack stronger. That's all. But it will not make, it didn't change the Archbishop in 83, it didn't change the Archbishop in 88, it didn't change Bishop Fellay in 2012, and I don't think it will change me, because I know exactly what we are doing and why we are doing
Say
it.
one more thing, I don't want to hog time, I don't want to...
Oh, that's fine, you know.
Father, I have heard the Archbishop's strong language used in the society since we've been members of the society.
Were you hoping to hear it?
Yes.
That's what I'm getting at, because I see a conflict of opposing egos.
It's a long story. The Archbishop was accused of exactly the same thing. He was too soft, he was too hard. I mean, for those who were already within the society in the years of crisis, 76, I was still a young boy, but I was educated within the society. 88, all the time, the criticism was from one end to the other, too hard, too soft. And it's exactly what's happening. You find us too soft, fine. The other find us too hard. The principles that have always led us and will continue to lead us are the heritage of Archbishop Fellay. If you want to know exactly what we think about the papacy, you take the conferences of Kansas City of last week. There you will have the position of the society. I think the language there was the same as usual, but was it too strong, too soft? Well, difficult to say. It's anyway. Yes.
Yeah, Father, just a point of clarification here. You mentioned, I think I really appreciate you bringing up the question, the concern on the change in principles about no practical accord before a doctrinal agreement. I wanted to just ask you about the consequences of maybe holding a little bit more of a rigorous position. So one that would be consistent, for example, with Father Gaudron's book on the Catechism of the Crisis in the Church. Should we expect those of us that hold a little bit more of a rigorous position that we will also be excluded from these chapels, from society chapels?
No, your positions are your position. If you make them public and if you bring this disturbance in our chapel, well, what do you expect? Is that your personal position, or are you trying to get other people on your board and undermining the work of the priest of the society? That's a real question, because that's what is going on. And the people who have been excluded from the society, priests or lay people, to whom we have decided to refuse communion, for instance, are always people who have made a public position attacking systematically the authorities of the society. They have been asked to stop, and they refuse to stop. So it is in the canon law and in the ritual the ability of a priest and of an ordinary, so the district superior, to refuse communion to certain people when they obstinately refuse that certain directives. It's absolutely conform with the canon law. I know we are attacked because we are very rash people, but that's a fact.
Yeah, I'm sorry, maybe that didn't come out quite right. My question is kind of, yes, for the layman, but also, I mean, amongst the priestly members of the society. So is there any tolerance for the more rigorous, if you will?
The society is a human organization with a general superior, with a general chapter, with district superiors, priors, priests, and that's how we work. Once again, if the priests have different positions, and that always happens, even within the society, you have a certain differences, even though I believe today, as well as in the past decades, the Society of St. Pius X is the most united congregation, I would say, even in the world, on our doctrinal positions, because of the heritage that we received from Archbishop Lefebvre. But if this is just a difference of opinion on certain things that is not disturbing and that are not used to undermine the function, the operation and the work of the society, that's fine. If it starts being used as it was by those who have been excluded, yes, it will be excluded. Because there is no other way. How can it's impossible to work without that minimum of organization, simply. And it's not just on the human level. The Society of St. Pius X has and have always had positions on these matters that priests over the years have disagreed with. Some have gone to the Fraternity of St. Peter on one hand, finding us too hard or too away from Rome. Some others have left on the other side, going, say, vacantist or independent priests because we are too soft. So today that priests are leaving us, unfortunately, is not something new. No. Yes.
Father, I was wondering on what grounds would a layperson be denied communion vis-a-vis their position on agreement? Would just voicing, say, on an internet forum or in a conversation in the parish hall, that they're uneasy about this be grounds for being denied?
I mean, if you are worried I'm not going to excommunicate everybody who speak, I think I have allowed one case today in the East. That person has received letters asking to remove to even close its website. So it's if you are worried, you'll receive letters before. You'll have time to because it's the canon law. Don't think that I enjoy doing these kind of things. I don't. But I will not let people play two games. On one hand, attack us. On the other hand, play angels at the communion rail. I told that person who I told that one person to whom I decided to refuse communion, that it's inconsistency in their even thinking to have a website where you explain that Bishop Fellay has made a new religion and still come to our church. This is a church of Bishop Fellay. So if the words have a meaning, either Bishop Fellay has a new religion and then get out. Please don't stay in a new religion. If we are not Catholic anymore, if we are not defending, just go out of here. And so on one hand saying Bishop Fellay has started a new religion, and on the other hand come and want from the priest of Bishop Fellay to receive the sacrament. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So it's this kind of situation that eventually lead to. But don't worry.
But as long as it's kept respectful and not.
You can talk to the priest about these things. You don't need to talk about and these persons make public on a website that their position are in opposition to our position. So yes, you're basically one or the other. Don't fight, please. Let's try to keep it.
I think this could clarify a lot of the things that happen. Study inside the tent. We had a priest in the earlier years named Father Normandy. Does anybody remember him? Oh, yeah. Okay. But Father Normandy was a pioneer in the traditional Catholic manner for many years. And I did go to Mass with Father Normandy. And one day he decided that he would go back with his bishop in Montreal because he was out in the cold. He was traveling across the country by bus, by train, by whatever, saying Mass.
Get to the point, please.
So anyway, when he left, it was the saddest sort of events that would cause many people like that. A lot of people, we all like disciplines. Father Normandy returned to the traditional Catholic faith not that long ago, a few years ago. I met him personally.
I did too. I was district superior when he came back to the society.
So there's a sample of what goes on in the Society of St. Pius X for any kind of traditional movements in the Catholic faith. It's always the same thing. It comes from ourselves. We decide that things are not right and we think things should be better. So we scan, especially with internet, to see what else is going on. And we make the decision that this is what we should do. The 9 priests was another episode. Out of those 9 priests, Father O'Hearn, Father Daniel O'Hearn, okay, he was from my hometown. He was the nicest person you could ever meet. He bent over backwards to help people get them confirmations or whatever. The day he was ordained, the very day he was ordained, he walked with the 9. His brother was in the seminary.
Yeah, I know. We won't make all the history. I've said, I think, many priests have left us.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately due to the situation of the church today, I think. And it will be our history until...
People become upset or whatever that, why are these priests doing this? It's nothing new. It's ongoing. So if you want to...
Well, you have one who, if you want to talk to someone who knows the history of the... Especially in the U.S., it's Father Hanos. He went through all the crises over there. So... But apparently, Father, you have changed your position recently.
Someone says that, but I'd like to talk to the priest about it.
Well, I'll quote what is there. There's somebody here who wrote it. 2 days ago, Father Pfeiffer and Chazal asked a priest stationed here in Postpol about making an agreement with Rome. That priest, 25 years in the society, or 26 now, who not long before was against any such agreement or regularization, now says that we should be moving in that direction. I think you should ask the question directly to Father.
What I said was, if we can get jurisdiction for marriages and for confession from the normal way from the church instead of the
Extraordinary.
basically the suplex, the church supplying, then why not? As long as we have guarantees to keep on being society priests and...
I know what you think, and I know we're in accordance, but I know what is said that you think. But it's always the same thing. I think the honest thing would have been to go to the person first and say, okay, what did you say, and what is your position, and did you change? But that's internet is good for that. You can say whatever you want, and you never have to retract. I mean, you have the obligation to retract, but nobody does. All right, you had a question, sorry.
Thank you, Father. A lot of heat tonight, but I have a question with maybe a higher level question with respect to where is all this going. There were these discussions with Rome, and you characterize them then as sort of evolving into essentially calling each other names again. I mean, we're Protestants and they're modernists.
We are gentlemen.
How did they really end? Did it really just conclude that we just call them modernists, or do we defend our position how we're not Protestant? But even more broadly speaking, what was the substance of those discussions? When will those be published? When can we review that? Or really, were they not substantive? Did we bring good ideas to the table that just were simply ignored or ridiculed? I'm just curious, where did that go? Because I think 300 years from now, things like that would be reviewed by future Catholics, not so much the things we're debating and worried about the priest here and the bishop there.
So, the calling names at the end of the discussions is just an example of things that happened there, because I think the society has been accused of lacking of strength to make speech. Apparently, we do not speak as hard as our bishop did. Well, that was an example, I think, of direct speech to the authorities in Rome. The discussions were not just calling names to one another. It was really theological. These have been recorded in writing, in video, in audio. But from the start, there were an agreement that until things would be over in one way or another, nobody would publish them. And I think we are men of honor, and what we agree to do, we do. Now, the substance of the conversation in Rome, if you want to read it, you have some of it expressed in a different way, but in the Courrier de Rome, in French, which is often translated in the Angelus, what is called Cicinono pages, most of the articles of last year and coming are in fact on the magisterium, on religious liberty and all that, are a response of the arguments, an exposition of the arguments of the society. So I invite you to subscribe to Angelus magazine. It's only $35 a year, and it has new layout. It's beautiful. What else can I say? And you will find there the answers. It is. I don't know if you've read any of these articles. They are not easy to read because they are deep theology, but they express very clearly what the position of the society is on all these questions.
Well, with respect to the so-called deal they put on the table, none of that was ever referenced. Is that correct? I mean, they just came back and said you just have to accept Vatican II.
As I tried to explain, yes, in the meeting of September 14, we were expecting an evaluation of these meetings, of these discussions. So, okay, what you said is wrong, or what you say is right, but they kind of put aside thing and say, okay, no, the Pope wants to recognize the society. And the natural understanding of that is, okay, well, you know exactly what we think. We just discussed them for 2 years, so don't say you don't know what we think about Vatican II, about you have exactly, and we are not changing on that. So the natural understanding when Rome comes and says, okay, here is a possible personal prelature, is okay, well, you know exactly what we think on all that, and we will continue to do. So that was the ambiguity that was created on the 14th of September and lasted until the letter of the Pope where he clarified. But even on that letter of the Pope, it's a bit strange letter, in fact. We are used to strange things from home. It's what I think people, a lot of people, I mean, we must not make it bigger than it is, because the reality is that even on this blog, it doesn't make a lot of people. It's usually the same one who talks to each other and refuse anybody who have another opinion anyway. But these people don't understand that the situation in general. They just don't get it. And often refuse to see it. Refuse to see even the explanation given. Yes?
The current position, apparently, of Bishop Fellay, according to what you were saying, is that a practical agreement may be possible even without a doctrinal agreement if enough safeguards are put in place. Would you say that's true? I don't...
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that the doctrinal discussion took place, so we didn't leave aside the doctrine. Mm-hmm. It is clear, it has never been as clear as today in Rome what we stand for. 3 years ago, most of them had no idea of what the position of the society was about these different issues. Today, it is clear. That's what we think, and they know that we disagree with their hermeneutic of continuity. So, the doctrinal discussion has been an enlightenment for them, hopefully, in the sense not that they agree, not that they've converted to our position, but they know what we... Now, this being done and this being said, if we have that freedom of continuing to defend that position, and therefore to attack those who are developing, spreading errors in the church, act by action or speech or whatever, if we have that freedom, and a status in the church that will give us this possibility of remaining as we are, yes, then it becomes possible.
I only ask because other groups have made agreements with Rome that are practical, including, say, the fraternity, and yet Rome hasn't honored those agreements. The fraternity was promised a bishop. 25 years later, they do not have one. Mm-hmm. So, is it possible, or is it wise for the society to make an agreement with Rome when they have not even kept agreements with other groups that have... Is
that a question of doctrine?
No, just
a question of prudence.
Well, I understand that it's a question of prudence. So I'm questioning...
Exactly, that's my point. I mean, that's my answer. It's a judgment of prudence.
Right.
And the judgment of prudence is not left to everyone.
No.
The church is not a democracy. We will not vote with all the priests and all that to know, all the faithful to is it prudent or not. It was a decision of the Archbishop in 88 to sign the protocol. It was a decision of the Archbishop to renounce it the day after. It was his decision to consecrate bishops against the will of the large majority of the priests who didn't think it was a good idea at that time, and so on, because that's the role of a leader. And therefore, it is the role of Bishop Fellay today to, with the facts, with what is in front of us, to decide is it prudent to go ahead or not. And because as soon as you say it's an act of prudence, well, you have to trust the authorities. And that's why today those who attack the authorities say, no, it's not a question of prudence, it's a question of doctrine. To discuss or to make accept recognition by Rome is already a compromise on principles, which has never been the position of the Archbishop. His actions and his words have always said it. It's a different position than the one of the society. Yes?
Dr. Rice, because I have always seen the society in a really precarious position, but a very unique one also, that maybe has never happened in the church. But the Archbishop in 1970 wrote the rule, submitted it, and got accepted. It was canonically erected. It was part of the church. The document is in Immaculate book, which I think should be in every one of our vestibules. We are part of the
I
church.
think it is. I think I saw it when I visited the.
No, the document, I think should be in a big
Oh.
poster. We are part of the church. And then the next bishop came along and he said, I disbanded you, and the archbishop said, you can't have to come to Rome. You go to Rome, and Rome has never dealt with it. So for 40 years, we are part of the church, but we're just a stroke of a pen away from being out of the church. And to me, that's a tremendous motivation to get this straightened out. Because, this can't go on forever being part of the church. We're going to be kicked out at some point. But on the other hand, it seems like all this property, everything that society has is part of the church. It's church property. It's just the bishops don't realize it. But if we sign up and then it doesn't go right, then we're outside the church. So you have to.
There is a few things that need clarification. First, church property is a property of the Society of St. Pius X. It's not the property of the bishops. And even if we were recognized, it would not be property of the bishop. It would still remain property of the Society of St. Pius X, like any congregation, religious organization, priestly society in the church. So, because that was also said that we would lose all of our properties. And so on. No. The situation of the society is unique, yes, definitely, but it is because of the situation of the church. It's a state of necessity, and that's what justify and explain our situation today. So I would not look at it as exclusion of the church or not, because it's not a canonical matter. The problem of the situation of the society is not a canonical matter. If it was a canonical matter, we have no other option but go and be recognized by Rome. Otherwise, we would be schismatic. That's the reality. But it's not a canonical problem. It's a state of necessity, which means that today in the church, in the Catholic Church, it's impossible to practice a Catholic life in the normal structure of the church. And therefore, we are forced to be in the situation we are. As soon as that state of necessity ceases, we have to be back into the normal organization of the church. Does the state of necessity remain today? Yes, it is. And even if the Society of St. Pius X was recognized tomorrow, it would not stop the state of necessity, because you go to the next parish and you have a teaching which is not Catholic, you have sacraments that you cannot receive, and so on. So the state of necessity is and must be objective. It's not depending on the Society of St. Pius X. It's objectively the situation of the church. That explains where we are today, and yes, and one way or another, we always present Bishop Fellay or even myself as an accordista, someone who really wants to an agreement with Rome. No, that's never been the position of Bishop Fellay, and it is already putting a dialectic within the society, dividing people. Okay, are you for or against an agreement? I'm not for an agreement or against an agreement. I know the situation of the church, I know our situation, and I know what we need in order to remain as we are. If the conditions are there, fine. If they are not, fine. Whatever. It's providence. It's the work of God. We have seen the work of God along the years, and we have seen that anyone who leaves the society on one way or another ends up in a sad way. And that's our history. Not that the society is infallible and cannot make mistakes, not that it will remain like this all the time, but it's still a fact. And to be honest, I don't see any reason today to change my position and my loyalty to the Society of St. Pius X. has always been in the mind of the Archbishop to talk to Rome in order to convert the authorities in Rome. You can see that in many different texts of the Archbishop. Yes, of course. And you can see today that the position of the society has forced Rome already to make some backpedaling or to change certain of their positions. And it's a reality. If there is the conditions necessary, and if you know what is interesting, I think that will answer. Those who have opposed in Rome the most recognition of the society last year are the most modernist cardinals, bishops, the Freemasons, and the Jews. These were the most animate against a possible recognition of the society in the church. Why? Because they know that when the Pope will make that step, it is the end of Vatican II. It is bringing over the years the end of Vatican II. And they know it, and that's why they have fought against a recognition of the society. On the day Bishop Fellay received the last documents before the letter of the Pope, he learned through the head of the Freemason in Rome announced that there will not be any agreement with the society. He knew it before Bishop Fellay had the documents, because they know exactly what it means. You have newspaper in France, for instance, have explained that it is clear for them that the recognition of the society for them is a clear cross mark on the Council of Vatican. So you have to see the whole picture of what's happening in the church. And it's not because a recognition would be a cross mark on Vatican II that we would jump into it. Because if it's not based on foundation, solid foundation, it would be imprudent. But if it is the God of will, if it is God's will, if it is the way God wants to restore the church, well, why not? The only position of Bishop Fellay during the whole year was to be open to Providence, trying to see clearly what was the will of God. Would there be conditions that would be sufficient or good in order to be able to remain as we are and even grow? That's all. Yes?
One real quick question, and then I want to follow that up with a comment by Archbishop Fellay. Would you hold that it's the official policy in Rome, including Benedict XVI, that they still hold to the doctrine of ecumenism?
Yes?
Well, on page 13 on the spiritual journey, again, just prior to the death of Archbishop Fellay, it says, as long as they hold ecumenism officially in Rome, it is the obligation of every Catholic priest not to return to Rome.
No, it didn't say
Page
that.
13.
I'll check the text. But anyway, it's always the same thing. You take one sentence and you try to make it the whole explanation of the argument.
No,
yes, you are.
Just one sentence. This is a clear paragraph.
So it is a dogma of the Church that as long as Rome is holding the position, we should not and return to Rome. I would like to check the.
If they could open the bookstore, I could show you in 10 seconds.
I'll check it. I'm a bit surprised by the word. But once again,
I don't see how a text like that can mean if there is an agreement. How is that a return to Rome?
That's where the expression return to. I mean, you have things in the way the Archbishop understood it, and it's always the same. You say, okay, like another example. Archbishop Lefebvre said to Cardinal Ratzinger, "You are modernist, we are traditionalists. We cannot agree. We cannot work together." That has been used against Bishop Fellay. You see, Archbishop Lefebvre was against the possible agreement. Well, that conversation between Archbishop Lefebvre and Cardinal Ratzinger took place before signing the Protocol of 1988. There is no conversation between Archbishop Lefebvre and Cardinal Ratzinger after 1988 with the consecration and all that. It took place before. So either Archbishop Lefebvre is a madman, saying one thing and doing another thing, or you must understand him. On one hand, you have a man of principles, of doctrine, who is not afraid to say things to Rome and say to Cardinal Ratzinger, "You're a modernist, we cannot agree, we cannot work with you." But on the same, in the same person and without division, you have a man of practical decisions who knew the authority of Rome. And if he had seen a possible protocol with a bishop, he would have gone ahead there. Providence showed that Rome was not prepared for that, and he backed down. But you cannot put in contradiction. Archbishop Lefebvre would say, "We cannot agree with you," and Archbishop Lefebvre who soon after signed the protocol. And when you use sentences like this, taken away from the whole thing and from the whole life of the Archbishop, it's taking part of it and making it a dogma as if all the rest had nothing to say.
Well, okay, I hear what you're saying, and both sides can play that game. Quote here, quote there. But Father, in all honesty and in all due respect, there is...
Usually when we start with due respect, I must be careful. Go ahead.
There is a very difficult situation in society, St. Pius, including among the bishops. And there is a serious question of the direction of the Society of St. Pius X. Now, it's being presented in such a way here that we really can't discuss this. That this is the way, the other way is kind of silly, but it's a little bit more serious. It's among district superiors, among Bishop Tissier. There is a serious issue here that I wish could be discussed in a much more, not just you allow me to ask this question, but in a much more open forum.
It's not a democracy. It's not a democracy.
We're not talking about democracy, we're talking about Prudence. We're talking about an honest disagreement among high members of the Society of St. Pius X. Seeing two different versions.
Once again, I understand your point. First, if I take back the history of the Church, 1976, you would have asked the people of the Society in 1976, people were following the Archbishop, well, should you continue or stop because of the suspension? What would people have answered? No. They were not ready. The Archbishop, no, that's my duty, I go on. And many priests left him at that point. It was not a decision of a democratical way. Even he surely asked the advice of other priests around him, but he was the one who made the decision. 1988, it's the same thing. If you ask the people at that time, should we go for consecration, I can assure you that the majority of the people would have said, no, you are making a schism. Archbishop Lefebvre knew what he was doing, he made a decision, and here we are, 25 years later, we know that that decision was right. It was not a question of majority of people, or even of discussion, should I do it, should I not do it. He asked advice from different priests, people he trusted, and so on, and he made a decision, and I can assure you, he made a decision against the opinion of many priests around him he asked them. Here, there is no difference. You have a leader, Bishop Fellay, who take advice from the different superiors, from different people, and who makes a decision, and he has to, and there is no other way, because once again, I know I am criticized for saying so, but it's a reality, it's even a fact of our faith. He has the state of grace, the grace of state to make that decision.
If we follow
That's a
that
reality.
logic, then Archbishop Lefebvre wouldn't have said, Rome, this is not possible. I'm going to remain with the eternal faith and tradition. That is the same argument. We would have had to follow the arguments of the popes.
But I cannot force you to come. I cannot force you to believe what I say. But don't expect me to follow what you think. I am happy to discuss. I read things on the internet. I know what the different priests. I know what Bishop Williamson thinks about the situation. I make my judgment with these different opinions. It's not that I am not thinking about the situation. I listen to you, I listen to your arguments. I don't think they are relevant to our situation. But if people brings me arguments, I say, oh, that's interesting. Well, I will look into it. But I have to lead the U.S. district. Bishop Fellay has to lead the society, and that's what we are going to do. And if people and priests disagree with that direction, I'm sorry for them. But once again, it won't make me change. It's not the number of priests, it's not the number of faithful that will change, because I know exactly the principles that have led us until now, and that will continue to lead us in this crisis as long as God wants us to be there. And maybe last one, because I'm about to faint. Just kidding. Yes, please.
The question about a state of emergency that you were alluding to earlier, and the applied state of jurisdiction, the highest of the church, highest church law. My question is in respect to one of the conditions, one of the 6 conditions, to paraphrase, I don't have it by memory, whereby there was something in there, and Bishop Fellay spoke about that to be into the to open up new priories, you have to ask one of the diocesan bishops. So my question is, if there's still a state of necessity, as you just said, that the practical agreement wouldn't alter or change, then wouldn't that hinder the practice of the universal supply jurisdiction to open in any other places if it wasn't for a conciliar bishop to say okay?
No, that would not affect in any way the state of necessity, or if that was, which was not in, the draft of the personal prelature that we had was not final. So if this condition, which was restricted for a new chapel, not a new priory, but a new place of worship, we would need the permission of the local diocese. That would definitely affect our growth, and it would be for us a question, once again, of prudence to say, well, can we deal with that or not? But it's not a question of principle, of doctrine. So yes, and we all agree that this was not a good condition in it, but there were still discussion on it, and at a certain point they were nearly ready to say, okay, you don't need the permission of the bishop. So it went back and forth. So my point is, first, that condition was not engraved as an absolute condition if everything had gone forward, first. Second, it's a question of prudence. Is that for us something that will stop us from growing? The reality is today I receive 10 letters every year for opening new chapels, and I cannot because I don't have the means to do it. So I am not in I don't even have the priest to be able to do it. So it's a question of prudence, okay? And would it be really a reason to stop the whole thing? Well, yes, maybe. No, maybe. But you can't make it as it has been made as a compromise. It's not a compromise. It's a practical, prudential judgment on the possibility of our growth or not. Will we be able to grow as we hope for or not? And there you can argue always, yes. But anyway, we didn't even go to that point because other conditions blocked us before. I hope that answered it. No? What do you mean?
My question specifically is actually on a matter of principle, not on prudence.
So what is the principle behind? Because that's exactly the argument of those who are leaving us. It would be a compromise on principles, but I don't see which principle it would compromise.
Excuse me, Father, I'm neither left nor right. I don't go.
No, I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying that's what I hear, and I'll be happy to know what is a principle that is attacked or by that, because the fact of opening new chapel in different places is not in itself an absolute right of the Society of St. Pius X in itself. It's a practical thing. It's
okay. Perhaps you don't understand. My question specifically is, if you receive a practical agreement, whatever it may be, or conditions it may be, my question is actually a little higher, whereby it's the highest law of the church that allows you right now, presently, to cross jurisdiction and to supply the sacraments, etc. My question specifically is, by doing a practical agreement, others have pioneered the way, Posts and others, the results are the same. So this is not an internet question, it's just my question.
But I don't get the question.
My question specifically is if you go under the auspices of Concilio Rome in a practical agreement, does that not hinder the practice of the state of necessity? You just mentioned.
I think I answered that question already. I said the state of necessity is objective. It doesn't depend on us. I can make an agreement with Rome tomorrow on my own or with the whole society. It doesn't change the fact that today to receive the sacraments for a normal Catholic or for a priest to be in a diocese is like impossible. That's what the state of necessity is. Thank you. The state of necessity is that the normal channels of sanctification are destroyed. Well, it doesn't depend on me or on the society. So even if we have an agreement, even if we receive ordinary jurisdiction through the church, it doesn't change the situation of the whole church. I don't know if that answers your question. No. You don't understand my answer? Or I'm sorry, I don't want to embarrass anybody or whatever. It's just, or I don't get the question. The state of necessity...
I understand, Father.
Okay.
My question is a very practical question.
What practical?
How does the society keep it open, its claim that it currently makes to go and open chapels when it's signing that away? That's the question. How does it continue to do its work that it claims to? There's a need to do, and then agree not to expand.
The society opens new chapels when it can, and when there is a call from faithful because of the state of necessity, and for no other reason. We have not a jurisdiction over the entire world. To say that would be to say that Bishop Fellay is a pope. And I've never been to the position of the Archbishop nor of the society. We go because of a state of necessity, because people are calling us. So if your question is, will we be able to do that in the new circle, I think I answer saying no, it's possible that it would restrain our growth. But is that a question of principle or a question of Prudence, my answer is it is a question of prudence. And people are trying to make it a question of principle. Because if you say it's a question of principle, in a way, you say that the society today and tomorrow should always have a supreme jurisdiction over the entire world, which is the sedevacantist position, or would be close to the sedevacantist position.
My goodness.
So that answer this time?
Well, thank you. Just so we had this come around, that you just started to say that, in fact, that you cannot open on the priorities, right? And if you cannot, then how does that express the fullness of the law of the church where you can cross boundaries?
It's a question of prudence. Is it prudent for us? In other words, will a recognition of the society make the society grow and influence the church more to the point that even to have to ask permission to the other bishop will become over time not a problem? It's a question of prudence. We may disagree, but you cannot make it a question of principles. You can say, I don't think that's a prudent thing. You will never be able to go. I accept that argument, and anyway, that discussion is purely in the air because that condition was not even finally discussed. And the intention of the society was to obtain, as much as we can, this possibility of opening priories or missions or churches in without the permission of the bishops. So it's purely intellectual discussions here. It's not but if that was one of the conditions, well, it would be a question of prudence to say, okay, we can go with it or not. Yes.
Since we get more priests, we will need more priests, probably.
Oh, yes.
Is there any effect on the seminaries and young seminarians? This crisis right now.
No, I don't think so. That's I didn't think of it, but as you mention it, it's one of the rare crises of the society that nearly didn't affect at all our seminaries, which is thank you to God, because definitely the crisis in '88 affected our seminaries. Some crisis, and the seminaries are usually a kind of a place where crisis can blow up easy, because it's a confined place where things can become pretty hot, like here tonight. Yes. Thank you very much. About 10 questions already. I said that was the last one. But go ahead, and after I'll give a blessing, and I'll be happy to talk to those who want to continue. But yes,
Father Rostand, I just want to say thank you so much for coming all this way and offering clarity to those who listen. And may God bless Bishop Fellay and the Society of St. Pius X.
Thank you very much. I know that over the United States, even though it doesn't appear like this on certain blogs, I know of the unity of the priests and of the faithful in nearly everywhere, and I can assure you that it was comfort for Bishop Fellay in the past month to see that, despite what we can see, have the impression on the internet. And I'll finish with that. A priest came to the ordination, so at the time where everything was already, it was bubble everywhere. So a priest came from Africa, I think, to the ordination. And after a few days, he came to me and said, I can't believe it. Your district is united. I thought, by reading the blog, that it was a disaster, but I see that everything is fine. Well, I thank you, I thank the priest, and I think there is no other option anyway. We have to remain united. It's not that I am trying to blind you and to force you into something. When you have facts, real facts, that you have a betrayal among the priest with whatever, a new mass, or, well, yes, we can have that discussion again, but and I'll be the first one to be on the other side. But the reality is that we are in the same fight with the same principles against the modernists who have taken the authority in the church, and we will continue that fight until the restoration of everything in Christ, from the doctrine to the liturgy, will come back, and that, once again, will come from Rome. How? I don't know. I give you a blessing. Benedictio Dominicis, Patris et Spiritus Sancti, Decenat super vos, et maniat semper. Amen.